folks, and welcome to the 13th episode of the Vitor Vicente podcast. Well, they say that the 13 is not a lucky number, but I would seriously question that, as I'm about to start chatting to Luís Serpa, a Portuguese writer and sailor, and a great storyteller. Luís is one of a kind. He knows the road from inside out, and a lot has to do with the time he spent on the sea. So just stick around, and you will hear what the water has taught him. So I hope you enjoyed this episode and show your satisfaction by clicking on the like button below. I would be thankful if you could subscribe to my channel. So I see you in a sec. Hi, Luís.
Hello.
Very welcome to my podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I think you are a great guest because we already exchanged a bunch of stories in person, so let's not make a secret out of that. We are friends. People will notice. I don't think there is a reason to tell because people will understand sooner or later. But what people probably are not guessing is that you are very far from my main audience. Yeah, my main audience is based in Europe. You are in the Caribbean, and you're gonna make a lot of people envy because the weather is still relatively cold. So tell me, how is it going in that part of the world?
Hi, Vitor. Yes, we are good friends. The first time we met was in Barcelona, remember? In Martinique, I am in Martinique, in the Caribbean island of Martinique. Martinique is part of the French Republic. It's a part of the French Dom. It's a very important basis for for yachting, and that is why I am here. In terms of making our audience envious, yes, the weather it's 32 degrees outside. I am on a co-work with air conditioned, but outside is 32 degrees. It's a beautiful day. I have a beautiful view in front of me, at least for people who like sailing yachts, which is my case. And life goes well. It's my last week here. At the end of the week, or in a few days, I will leave to Saint Martin, which is another French territory, and then I will cross the Atlantic to go to Portugal. So the perspectives are very good. We must say that we cannot complain.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure, you're not bored, not at all, with all these trips and to parts of the road that people when we see on Google Earth and things like that. And I remember a couple of years ago, you were mentioning that you had this idea in mind of spending winter in the Caribbean Sea. So, what is it about? Are you like bringing clients from one island to another? What is it, the scope of work?
Yes, that was the original idea. It was to do charter. That's the technical term for it. The charter, to do charters between here and the Grenadines. Well, it did not happen. Like lots of plans, it did not happen that way. I stood here the entire winter. I had some health issues. I had some problems with the boat, and I did not go to my beloved Grenadines, which is where I wanted to go. But one thing are the plans, and the other thing is what we do about the plans, and we have to get used to it, and I am used to it. So I spent the winter in the Caribbean, not exactly where I wanted, but it's nice, it's good. I cannot complain. It's okay.
Yeah. So I think what you just said, that one thing is our plan, another is what's happening. Probably that's something that the sea has told you, because the sea to me it's predictable, and maybe you know the sea. I mean, for sure you know the sea more than the average person. Is the sea full of surprises? Even after I don't know how many years you are sailing, you still encounter some unexpected stuff on the way, or how is it?
Oh yes, Peter. I do hope that the day where I do not encounter unexpected situations at sea is very, very far away, because that means that I would not be at sea. The sea, there is something about the sea. There are two things about the sea that are very, very important and that are very difficult to explain to land-based people. The first one is that we sailors, we humans, we are the weakest link in all the chain. When you take the boat, you take the sea, you take the weather, you take your mast, you take your sails, you take everything, your engine. We are the weakest link. Our engine is stronger than we are. Our mast is stronger than I am. The weather, don't even speak about it. The sea. So we are very weak in that long chain of that makes the contact between us and the other thing that it's also difficult for people to understand is that the amount of variables that we do not control, it's much larger at sea than it is at shore. If you work on a company, you work with airplanes, for instance, you have an X amount of uncontrollable variables, variables that you cannot control. At sea, and it is quite high compared to other industries, it is quite high. At sea, this amount of variables it's much higher, it's much larger. We cannot control a lot of things. We cannot control the weather, starting with the weather. We cannot control most of the work of our suppliers. I mean, if I have a guy repairing my mast, I can control it a little bit, but I cannot be behind him every millimeter. So, and there is a lot of variables that you cannot control in our life. And if you put together these two things, that the first one is that you are the weakest link of the chain, and the second one is you cannot control. Most of your life, of your professional life, is out of your control. It makes quite a special situation, and it teaches us humility to start with, and second, it teaches us to get to be flexible and to adapt to whatever comes our way.
Yeah. I think the sea is full of lessons, especially if you spend, a good part of your life saving from one place to another. So I think you are just learning, always collecting situations that you bring to your daily life, and most of us probably don't face it because I think for us, let's say, our jobs are very much repetitive. Whereas I think if you are in the sea, it's not exactly that. Though the sea seems always the same. Like it seems like it's blue. It's sometimes it's static, sometimes not much static. So how much your days can vary when you are sailing?
Well, this is something that I strongly refute, because even if you are on a boat and you look at the sea, and lots of people say this is always the same. It's the sea. It's always they see the waves, and it is actually not true. The sea, when it's a film, it's a movie, and the sea, it's a movie that tells you what happened far away or nearby, what it is now, and what it will be. And this movie, you have to be able to read it, and this is what separates a good seaman from a bad seaman, or not a seaman at all, is that when I am looking at the sea, I am seeing a movie, and this movie changes all the time. Because if there is, say, there is a very strong wind very far away, 2,000 nautical miles away from me, there is a very strong wind. The waves of that strong wind will arrive to me. I will see that very far away there is a strong wind. If by the direction of the waves, I can see if this wind is coming towards me or if it is going away from me. So it's you never get tired of looking at the sea, because it's a permanent source of information. It's a movie. There are not a lot of characters in this movie, I agree, but at least you are always watching a story, and you have to know how to read that story.
So can we say that the sea is a language of itself?
Yes, you can say that. There is a language, and that is something that I strongly, when I teach, it happens to me to teach sailing, and I tell people, when you get to the sea or when you get to a boat, you are like a kid, and the first thing that you have to learn is how to walk on a boat. It's enough for me to see someone walking on a boat, and I know immediately if he's experienced or not, just by walking, no, not more. And then once you know how to walk, you need to know how to speak, and that speaking englobes everything. That speaking means knowing the language of the boat and knowing the language of the sea as well. And it is very important that, yes, you can say it's a language.
Yeah, and I think your father was also on the sea, or there was some relation between his workplace and boats. I don't recall exactly what was that. So you were introduced to the maritime life from a very early age. Am I correct in
Yes,
reminding that?
you are absolutely correct. My father was a captain on the merchant navy, and his last years on the merchant navy, it was we went to Mozambique when I was 8 years old. So it was until 8 years old, from 0 to 8 years old, I was in contact with the sea because of my father, and I was in contact with ships and with the merchant navy and with talking, the sea talk that we were talking about. So yes, it's something that I inherited from my father. Yes.
If you wouldn't be a seaman, what do you think you would have been?
Well, that's a good question. I have three. I have the sea and then two more alternatives. I would like to be an aviator. I'd like to be a pilot, airplane pilot, and I would like to be a writer. So, well, I write, as you know, I write. I do not fly. I do not pilot airplanes. I fly very much, but I do not pilot the airplanes. But yes, that is the two other things that I would be, either a pilot or a writer. Which are two different ways of traveling.
Yeah, and yes, exactly. Yeah, that I was thinking, what will be the common element between those three? Because there must be something in common that will explain your appetite. So between the pilot and the seaman, I understand there is something about driving, something about going from one place to another. And yes, you are right. When you write, you are also navigating through your thoughts, your words, your emotions. So there's a whole experience of moving. So to me that you are not into a profession that is static, but it offers you some movement.
Yes, the movement and variety. I tried several times in my life. I tried to have an office job from 9 to 5, and I'm not suitable to that. I mean, I cannot. I just cannot. I mean, it's not bad willing. I tried. And there are several. So there are a few things in common. That I think that the most important is about freedom. Is not having schedules very fixed. Obviously, merchant navy and airplanes, you have schedules, and they are very, very strict. But it's never the same. It's not every day 9 to 5. And I think this is one of the things that attracts me very much on this. And the fil rouge of these three professions is the freedom. Yes, it's mainly that.
Yeah, yeah. I think the freedom is a key element for you, especially because you are the creative type. So you cannot just be stuck in a role where you do something and then you repeat it all over again, and you are paid for it. That wouldn't suit you at all. So it is probably one also want to add your mark. And I think when you are sailing, there's something personal about it that okay, others could drive the boat, but maybe you can offer a different experience. Is it like customer service thing that also matters for uh, driving like client's boat, or how much of that is
Well,
in your scope of work?
it's about. I used to say always that's about 99% of my work. If you charter, the technical term is charter. So if you charter a boat for say 1 week, and you can have a lousy boat, you can have a lousy weather, you can have everything. If the skipper is good, the clients will go out happy, and they will say, well, there's nothing we could do, the boat was not in good condition, the weather was not good, but the skipper was very nice. And on the other hand, you can have the best boat and you can have the best weather, and if the skipper is a lousy skipper, people will go out of the boat unhappy. And it's easy to understand why. We are normally about 6-7 persons on a very strict area. The surface is not very big. It's a place where when you are at sea, you cannot just go out of the boat and walk walk on top of the sea. So the personal aspect of the things, it's very, very important, and it is one of the points for me. It's the most important. It's the one that I work more when I have clients. Obviously, sometimes it doesn't work. Obviously, I've been doing this for a long time, and I cannot say that I have 100% of satisfaction. It's not true, but this is what you have to train, what you have to work, and that is what separates a good skipper from a bad skipper. It's for charter, mainly for charter. In charter, you work in places it's very short navigation. It's 3-4 hours per day. You go from beautiful places to beautiful places. So it's the personal aspect, the relationship aspect is much more important than everything else. And I have loads of examples about that. I mean, I know people. It's much more important than the technical knowledge. It's the personality thing. It's much more important.
Yeah, 100%. That is what people will remember, is the chat, the interaction, the vibe, the energy exchange, and that's something that is, I think, more difficult for every single of us, because the techniques, one way or another, whether it's related or not, you can learn. They are teachable, but the human skills, it's much more challenging. I mean, you can be born with those and develop. You can have a tendency to be able to put that in your life, in your relations, and you'll be okay with it. But if you don't have that inclination, you'll never master. So it's almost like a gift that can be worked.
Yes, you are absolutely right. Yes, and it can be worked mainly by trial and error. It's not there are not books about that. I remember that when I started my charter business, I had in a former life, I had a charter business in the Azores. And when I started it, I bought all the books by Paul Václavic, who is an American psychiatrist who was specialized in communication. And that was very, very useful, because it's a matter of everything goes towards communication. But if you don't have that personal gift, as you say, you can read as many books as you want, and it won't help. That's for sure.
When you are working on the sea, do you have? I'm sure you do, but how many breaks you have? Are you able to switch off? Are you able to tell the client, sorry, I'm out of duty for an hour, two? I mean, either other than the time you are sleeping or resting or isolated. How can you tell that, sorry, I'm not available at the moment, or just there for the client whenever you meet him?
Yes, we have, again, going back to charter. If you are on a delivery, it's not the same thing. But speaking about charter, I have a game, a kind of a game, depending, and it depends on the clients, and depends where I am working, and depends the company where I am working. But yes, I have two funny stories about that, because I used to work at a certain point in my life. I used to work for a company that did the Grenadines, the islands I was mentioning to you about. And in the Grenadines, there is an island, everybody knows the name. It's an island called Moustique. It's very famous because the Queen of England has a house there, and it's a very, very, very upscale, upper crust island, Mustique. And in Mustique there is a bar, which is a famous bar called Basil's. That bar is famous because Eric Clapton used to play there and Mick Jagger used to play there, and they used to play. Sometimes they played together just because for fun, and it was not a concert, not a formal concert. And the Basil's got kind of a name, and I would tell to people, now we are going to Mustique, and this is my moment off. I'm not working anymore. I'm going to Basil's, and you'll find me at Basil's, and you go to discover the island. This was kind of a joke because obviously I was always working. I have to keep an eye on the boat to see if the boat is okay and everything. But for them it was very nice, and it allowed me mainly to have a break with them first, because it's necessary to be from times to times to have a break from your guests. And second, it allowed them to go, and because they would like to go and see the houses, the celebrity houses, and see the house of the Queen of England and Mick Jagger's house and this and that, and which is something that does not interest me at all. It does not attract me at all. So it was a way of letting them go without having to go with them. So that was one of the moments where I can get away, more or less, really get away. The other,
so everyone is happy. They go to see the houses, and they have your own.
I stay in Basil's drinking pina coladas and thinking about life, and it was very good. The other situation was a very, very similar situation. It includes a bar as well. It's in the British Virgin Island. There is an island called Jost van Dyke, and Jost van Dyke has a bar called Soggy Dollar Bar. And that Soggy Dollar Bar invented a cocktail, which is my favorite cocktail from all times everywhere. It's called Painkiller. It's the best name for a cocktail that you can imagine, Painkiller. Yeah. and we would go to Jost van Dyke, and I would tell the clients, my friends, I am off work now. You do whatever you want. You go to swim, you do whatever. I am going to Soggy Dollar, and I'm going to drink painkillers. And I would spend my day drinking painkillers at Soggy Dollar, and the clients would go wherever they want. And those two moments are moments that I remind with a lot of pleasure, because it worked. It was very nice. It was a break during that, because we worked 7 days a week. So it was a welcome break on my week. It was the bar break.
Yes, I think most of us who work for third parties are always happy when we can take a break, especially a break from the boss. So I think people out there are related to you now, even if they work in an office job.
Yes, that's
There's nothing better than being away from the boss. Yeah, before, I know if we start talking about the sea, we'll be here for 5-10 hours, and we have a bit more than an hour. So let me orientate our conversation out to books. And I think as of now, you are the author of 3 books. 2 of them are made out of your blog. So it's mostly what you experience, what are your thoughts on that designated time, what you went through, also some observations about life, society, relevant people. And you are not concerned to share what are your views. But you are basically someone who lives and writes, which is kind of to me kind of an old-fashioned writer, in the sense that you're not trying to separate yourself from the writer. You are the writer. You are embodying the person that is writing the book, and there's not much in between. How do you filter what you write, if there is a filter?
Yes, there is a filter. I have to look for the word in English. Wait a moment, translate. Pudor. I think English. I want English. Wait a moment. Well, in English they translate pudor as modesty. I don't know if this is the correct translation for pudor. Most of my most of my books are autobiographical. As you said, two of them are based on my blog, and one of them is not based on the blog, although it has some overlapping things. But the second book that I published, which was the first one that I wrote, but the second book is not out of the blog. The other two are out of the blog. What do I write on the blog? There are loads of everything. I mean, it's really about everything and everything and everything. It can go from recipes to erotic fiction to aphorisms to whatever. It covers a lot of different things. But the only thing that I try, even when I am very, very personal, which happens sometimes, I try to have some pudor, some modesty, not to go into things that I think that other people need not to know. And that is the filter that I put in everything I write. I can tell stories often. I tell stories where I am the victim. I like that very much. I think there is a picaresque. I don't know if this is an English word. Picaresque character in my writing. I am the victim of my own adventures. I am not the hero. I am the victim, and that I don't mind. But as long as this borderline, this line between what you can tell and what you cannot tell, and that is my main filter, my main thing. What can I tell? And the other line, obviously, is not to go into the intimacy of other people, of certain people. I always try to preserve that. I do not identify people on my blog. I do not identify people, never, either for good or bad. I never identify them. So these are the two lines that I try not to cross. I don't know if I always get to not to crossing them, but this is the lines that I try not to cross.
Yeah, I see the effort. So you try to keep some privacy that others that you are mentioning are not that much exposed, or at least in a way that will compromise their lives, their day-to-day jobs, their relations, their teens. So I see the effort, and this sentimental part, I think, is also present on you. It's not there all the time, but there are moments that I think is very, very much visible. It always resembles Leonard Cohen, which I think is a big figure for you. So how much of Leonard Cohen is echoing on you as a person and on you as a writer, which it turned out is the same. So I shouldn't say the person as a writer, because that same figure.
Well, it is very, very difficult for me to compare with Leonard Cohen. Leonard Cohen, as a sailor, I do not have heroes. I do not have figures over. Probably I will have only two in my life. One is a sailor, and the other one is Leonard Cohen. And Leonard Cohen it's very difficult for me to compare with him. But I think that we share. There is something that I share with Leonard Cohen, and that makes me love all his songs. Is the same fascination with love, with women, with the world. I think that if you ask me why do you like Leonard Cohen so much, in one word, and that word would be fascination. Not the fascination that you feel towards the other, towards the world, that you are in a permanent, the brink of an abyss, of a gap, and I shared that with Leonardo. I think not with the same talent, obviously, but I that is what I share with Leonard Cohen. It's this fascination with the abyss, and with love. And
that's for sure. That's for sure present in both. Like you guys, like reporters, probably the methodologies are not always the same, but the interest and the idea that there's always something out there, and it doesn't matter how far you go, because the path is endless, and you are okay with that. You are aware that you can go further and further, but you'll never get to the bottom of it, and that's probably the thing that fascinates you.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's the idea that you never know someone, that you never get to know someone, and the idea that you try, at least you try to know that person through sex, through because it's wrong to think that it is only a matter of sex. It's not. It's not only a matter of bodies. It's a matter of being together by different loads of different reasons, and you don't know why. You don't know exactly that story. Leonard's story with Marianne. It's, for me, it's a kind of paradigmatic, because she just left her husband and family to be with him, and they were with, and he still loved her. Dozens and dozens of years after. And this is something that happens to me also, because there is, as you say, this path is an endless path. And even if love or life or whatever separate you, there is always something of that person into you. And this is something that is one of the reasons why I adore Leonard Cohen. I cannot say that I love him. I adore Leonard Cohen because of this common thing. Yes.
Yeah. I was just thinking here, like how much of that is related to the act of loving, because it seems that love is more than anything else unveiling not only the person you love, but also unveiling yourself as you are in love. It's the curtains are going to drop, and a lot of things that we tend to set on the side or not show to ourselves and to others, they come up when we love, because there is some fragility about being in love that we don't experience that much throughout our lives, because we try to be strong, we try to get on with things, but when you are in love, you are very much vulnerable, and that's powerful, isn't it?
Yes, that you are getting right to the point, because I used to say that I am very, very frail, and people don't believe me. They look at me, they see quite a big guy, and they see a sailor, and I go into the oceans, and I cross tempests and everything. But I define myself as a very, very frail and vulnerable person. And love is exactly that. Love is exchanging vulnerabilities and see what what kind of vulnerabilities can you cure, commas, or what kind of vulnerabilities can you exchange, and mainly, I think that being in love and being loved is a way of living with your vulnerability, with your frailty, and being comfortable with that frailty. And so this kind of frailty that you have in love is very important for me, and it is what defines a good relationship from a bad one. It's how much of myself can I expose, how much can I be myself, and that is what defines for me a relationship.
Do you think falling in love is a choice, or it's not up to us?
Well, it is an evolution in my life. Nowadays, I'm more and more. I am 66 now, and I think since my 40s, late 40s, I start thinking, yes, there is a very, very strong voluntary component on falling in love. I mean, there are persons with women. In my case, it's women that I see, and I say I want to fall in love with that woman, because there is something in her that attracts me, and that obviously, again, it's not 100% sure. It's just, but I think there is yes, it's a two component. It's a two component glue, but there is I think there is a very, very strong voluntary component on that. Yes.
And is it the same for the time it's not that you decide, but let's say you put an end on a relationship with someone, can you put at the same time decide I'm not in love anymore? So is it the same, like the end of the story as the beginning, or you can put the end and still love the person
No, there are all the situations in my story, in my affective story. There are all kinds of situations. There are women that we split, and I still love them. Sometimes they split, sometimes I split, and I still love them. But it doesn't get anywhere. It's like that. The path is got to an end, and from there you can't go anywhere. There are some cases where you see I was wrong and I should not fall in love with this woman because I should not have fallen in love with this woman because it was a mistake. Sometimes it's the women that think it was a mistake to fall in love with you. But so the beginning is much more uniform than the endings. The endings are much varied. There are much more variety in the end of the story than in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I think we can say that love is a very complex thing, and we don't know exactly what's going on. We try to be as rational as we can, but it's never totally up to us. There are a lot of elements that just fall from all the angles, and we need to accept them and get on with that. But if there is some component of choice, I think we can be happy about. And when you're on the sea, how do you deal with, let's say, I know your kids are in Switzerland, as far as I remember. How do you deal with being far from those you love? Like, and I'm just excluding women, just to try to make it a bit more simple in this case.
It is one of the complexities of my life. I have been all my life, since I'm a teenager, since I'm 18 years old, I have been away from the people I love, either my family, my girlfriends, my friends. So it is one of the things that introduces a lot of complexity on myself when I think about myself, because my life, my affective, my life and friendship, my love and friendship life, my social relationships have always been based on absence. I have always been absent from my friends, from everything. And that is one of the things that helped me a lot to deal with this absence was writing. I used to write dozens of letters all the time to everybody. Since I started sailing in the merchant navy, I wrote, I don't say every day, but almost every day I inundated people with letters. The other day, about a few years ago, I discovered a pack of letters that I had received from those people and as a matter of fact, writing has always been a way of dealing with absence. And I think this is something that you can see from my writing. I'm always trying to atone for absence, for being absent. I am away. We went away. It's a theme that comes back very, very much in my writing.
Yeah. It's true. Now that you mention, and I try to remember some of the stuff I read from you, it's there all the time. Like, you are more absent than present, and you talk about the absence. You are exploring the vacuum, you are exploring the emptiness, in the lack of a better word, or the something that is not around, but it is what is it around. So for you, there's nothing more present than the absence.
Yes, absolutely. That's a good way of putting it. Yes.
So if now we have, WhatsApp, we have mobile phones, we have video calls like this, but 20, 30 years ago, if someone wants to contact you, they would need to send you probably a letter. And you just mentioned that you're exchanging letters with your loved ones. So you know people's addresses in principle. They are still living in the same place they were when you left to your excursion on the sea. For us, average Joes like me, we want to send you a letter. How could people do it? Because you're going from A to B, from B to D, and then D to F. What was the best way to send you a letter?
To send to the harbor master or to the marinas. I would tell people I will be in, say, for instance, let us imagine that we were 30 years ago. I would write everybody saying next address is St. Martin, Post Office St. Martin, or Marina Marigot in St. Martin, and or a very well known one in our country, Peter's Bar in Horta. Write me to Peter's Bar, write me to Marigot's Marina, or write, and that was my, or to the post office, and it was my address. I had a lot of a lot of letters sent to these places.
Yeah. You mentioned a lot of addresses. I think at some point I called you the man without house keys. Is it still the case? You don't have a house key in your pocket?
It's not exactly the case, because now I rent a room in Lisbon, but it is almost the case because I want to leave that room. It was a big mistake for me, and yes, it is. You are absolutely right. I am a homeless. A deluxe homeless, I must say, but yes, I have the keys of a house, but I need to leave that room. It was a mistake, and I don't like keys actually.
Yeah.
I don't.
They don't suit you. So if we go through Luís pockets, you will find everything except keys. If there are keys in those pockets, you can be sure it's not Luís' jacket, it's not Luís' trousers, it's someone else. That's for sure.
Yes, that can be that, or in this case here in Martinique, for instance, I have to have the dinghy's keys with me because the dinghies are stolen. So I have keys for the dinghy. Yes, that's for sure, but not for a house. No.
So Martinique is a French colony. I think they still use the euro. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they still use the euro. They
Yes.
still belong to France one way or another, and there is now about or socio-political topics. There's a lot of anger, sometimes hate towards the colonies. Is this something that in the Caribbean is also happening, or they just don't care?
It's a complex situation. Here in Martinique, it's very soft. There are some independentists, obviously, but the point is that most of the money that here first of all, it is not a colony. Don't say that it is a colony. They will not like here. It's they call it a
good that I'm up there with you. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble.
It's domaine d'outre-mer or territoire d'outre-mer, but not a colony. Actually, they live out of money, out of French money. They live out of subsidies from the French government. So there are some independentists, and there is some resentment against the old colonialists and the slave and all these fashionable things. But it is not very strong, because for one very simple reason is that what they eat comes from France. So, and when they pay what they eat, it comes from France. So it's the independence movements here in the French Caribbean. It's not very strong. It changes from places to places. In Guyana is a little bit stronger. In Martinique is a little bit weaker. In Guadeloupe is a little bit. In Saint Martin is almost non-existent. So it changes from island to island. But there is a little bit. It's not a very present thing. It's not something that you feel.
Because everyone is on the internet these days, and then they see these trends on the likes of Twitter, Facebook.
Yes, obviously, the slaves and the problems of the slaves. It was 200 years ago, but they still live it as if it was today. But obviously, there is also a lot of. First of all, there is a lot of hypocrisy on that moment, which is. Hypocrisy is a constant in human life. If you read the Greeks, there is stories about hypocrisy, so it's not new. And then there is a component about interest as well, because obviously we are on a time where being a victim pays more than not being a victim. If you are a victim, you receive more money and more attention than if you are. It has not always been like that, and sometimes it was different, and sometimes if you were a victim, you were despised. Now if you are a victim, you receive money for it. And so there is a, but it's here in Martinique you can live quietly with that. In Guadeloupe is a little bit stronger. I have not been to Guadeloupe for a long time now, but it used to be a little bit stronger, that feeling. But here in Martinique it's quite pacific. It's quite quiet.
That's good to hear that people are reasonable, common sense applies, and you are not just drive by the madness. You also spent some time in Burundi. You spent, I know you were in a few unusual places. I'm trying not to miss any of them. And there you were working for UN, so you were not on the sea. Can you tell the people how was your experience in Burundi? Like,
Yes, I was in
short.
Burundi during the Rwanda genocide. It was one of the few times in my life that I had decided to leave the sea. I was decided I am fed up with the sea, and I was based in Geneva at that time. And I decided to do all the UN agencies because I had nothing. I'm a nautical officer. Right? The only thing I had is that I speak 4 languages more or less fluently. I know a little bit about transportation because I was a nautical officer. And so I went to all these UN agencies, and I had some experience in Africa because I lived in Mozambique until I was 17 years old. And the first agency that accepted me was the UNHCR, and then the genocide in Rwanda began, and they decided to send me to Rwanda, to Burundi, because it was chaos, it was mayhem, you cannot, it's very, very difficult to describe what Burundi was during the genocide or after the genocide. I arrived there at the end, basically at the end of the genocide, but nobody was expecting it. And so just to give an image of how much nobody was expecting it, the representative, the UNHCR representative in Burundi, had been sent to Burundi to close the agency in Burundi, because it was a very, very symbolic moment for the UNHCR, because it was the Burundi had been the first agency out of Europe that the HCR had opened. And so it was the first one to be closed, and it was very symbolic. So
what year was that? Sorry to interrupt, but what year was that, more or less?
It was in 93 or 94. It was the end.
Okay.
You have to Google 90. I think it was 93 or beginning 94.
Fine. Yeah.
And so when I got there, I didn't even have a place to sit. I did not have an office. I was walking in the streets trying to find trucks. We were receiving refugees every day, thousands of refugees, and we had to cope out of nothing. And it was, I must tell you that it was, for me, it was one of the years of my life. I was very, very lucky, because the representative that had been there to close the agency was a fantastic person. He was a young New York guy. He gave me free hand I could handle it basically almost the way I wanted, which is where I am best, is when I can do things my way, and I don't have anyone telling me what to do. And we managed something that in 4 months, 5 months, we had a logistical chain working from Bujumbura to the deep end of Burundi, and it was amazing, but it was crazy. The first 2 months, we were working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. It was from morning to after 2. And when I say work, it's work. It's not. It's to eat. We had a sandwich somewhere or a beer or whatever. And after 2 months, after the first 2 months, we start having Sundays free, but the other days were 12 hours a day. And after 4 months, the situation stabilized a little. But it is very, very difficult to describe, because you were living on a situation. I mean, I was not directly involved with the genocide. I mean, the genocide was over when I arrived. It was almost over. But I still had kids in the street with scares all around their head because they had been cut with machetes. I had three killers sleeping in my office because they could not go into the street because they would be they would be killed. So they were sleeping in my office.
Were you not afraid of sleeping with three murderers
I
next
was
to
not
you?
sleeping with. They were sleeping in my office. I was not. I was awake up. No, I was
Okay.
not afraid. I mean, I think that there was it was a kind of madness. It was madness. It was something totally irrational, and they were more afraid. They were sleeping in my office because they could not go into the streets, and they were more afraid than me. I was.
Yes. Yeah.
To start with, they had no reason to kill me whatsoever. I was not Tutsi, I was not Hutu. First of all, second, I was giving shelter to them. I was protecting them. No, I was not afraid. But it was a curious sensation. Every time that I had to go to work, I had to jump over three bodies of people who were accused of killing hundreds of persons. It is, to say the least, curious. But it was a fantastic year, personally, professionally. It was totally. I would not leave it again. If you tell me, Luís, there's a genocide back, would you go there? I said no, thanks. It's enough. Once in a lifetime is enough. But it was a fantastic, terrible, but fantastic year. Yes.
So you spent some time working on land, and then you returned to the sea.
Sorry, I stopped listening to you. I heard that I spent some time.
No,
I spent some. Are you
no
hearing
problem.
me well?
No. I think it was breaking here. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm hearing well. Yeah, so it was
No,
breaking here. So
one of
you
the
were on land and then you returned to the sea. How was it?
one of the curious things about my trip to Burundi. So as I told you, I arrived to Burundi and we worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. So there was no time for anything. Burundi is by the lake. There is a big lake, Lake Tanganyika there, and after those first 2 months, we had the Sundays free, and I started going to the yacht club, to the local yacht club, and I bought a sailing boat. So it's very difficult to get sailing boats out of me, even if I want to go to if I want to leave sailing boats, they go. So I used to sail a little bit there. After Burundi, I went to what was called then Zaire. It was now it's Congo, but it was Zaire. And all in all, I spent 3 years out of the sea. After those 3 years, I decided that I had enough with the humanitarian. I had made my opinion about humanitarian. It's done, but I did not return to the sea immediately. I went to London. It's the advantage of not having keys is that you have a house everywhere. And I had a friend who had a house in London, so I went to London. And after that, I went back to Geneva, and I was there working a little bit until 2002. And in 2002, I decided to come back to Portugal, and yes, then back to sea. I mean, not directly, but to organizing races, sailing races in Portugal, which I did for a while. The transition was quite easy because I was much at ease with the sea. I mean, I've been living by the sea or working with the sea for all my life, so it was like if I had taken some holidays, and more or less I found out later that I had a very strong PTSD, post-trauma stress disorder, out of these 3 years, because what I lived there was very traumatic. But obviously you don't feel it, you don't know it until someone shows you.
Yeah.
You have a strong PTSD. But it was easy to return to sailing yachts, and it was my people. It's like if you are back out of Portugal and then you go back to Portugal after a while. It's your people, and a few things have changed, others not. It was quite Pacific.
Yeah. And you said at some point that you built your opinion of humanitarian and NGO. So what's your view in general of the UNs of this world?
It's very bad. It's terrible. It's very. It's. I have. I think that most of. First of all, we have to separate NGOs from UN. UN is a useless thing. It's the main function of UN is to give jobs to the upper crusts of African and the poor countries, and they have a good job, well paid, and they are totally useless, as we can see now. I mean, UN is totally useless, but they have an advantage is that they don't do a lot of harm because they don't do anything. So they speak and they speak and they make money, not that much, not as much as people think, but for an African country or for an Asiatic country, it's a lot of money, and it's a way of the African government send. If they want to get rid of someone, they send someone to the UN. If they want to retribute something, they send him to the UN, and it's useless, but it's harmless also, mainly, as we can see now. I mean, we have the Secretary General there is the most irrelevant person in the world, and
a complete idiot.
And a complete idiot, and it doesn't change very much anything.
Yes. And just one note on that, I heard the other day that the Socialist Party is thinking about him as a candidate for the presidentials. Can you imagine that guy as president of Portugal? I mean, I can imagine. I wouldn't be too happy, but he's on the card.
I can imagine. It's a terrible problem. I mean, I think that he won't leave the UN to be president. I mean, irrelevancy for irrelevancy. He would prefer UN. I mean, the salary is higher. He has much more international relevance than he has as a president of Portugal. He can exhibit his idiocy much wider in the UN than in Portugal. So I don't think I wouldn't, but he has to leave. I think so. But anyway, if you go to the UN, this is one thing. And humanitarian, you have to divide humanitarian aid and development aid. Humanitarian aid is that when there is an urgency, like the Rwanda, or if there is a floods, or if there is a cyclone, then that is more or less acceptable. That kind of aid, because those countries, they do not have the means to deal with very large urgencies, and I think that they are. What I am strongly against, but I mean very, very strongly against, is about development aid money that we are sending to third world countries in order to help them developing. And the point is,
Palestine.
I mean, yes,
the point is Hamas, that
it goes to Palestine is worse. It's worse. It's much worse. No, that is a particular case because it goes to UNWRA, and it goes to Hamas. I mean money that you send to Burundi or to Rwanda to help them develop, or to Zaire to help them develop, it doesn't help them develop, first of all, but there is a conceptual critique that I do from the beginning. That is, we are trying. The problem in Africa, I'm talking about Africa because it's the continent that I know the better. I've been living there for a while. I've been working there. Africa's main problem is not economical; it's political, and we are treating a political problem with money. So it doesn't work. It's useless. If it's like treating a cancer with aspirins. Aspirins is good if you have a headache. They are not good if you have a cancer. And sending money to
why
Africa,
do they do that? You think they are not aware of the solution, or it's for
they
a
are
different
aware.
purpose?
They are aware. I can tell you that one of the things that I learned working in the UN and working with the ICRC, because in Zaire I was with the ICRC, is the most intelligent persons I ever worked with. I never ever in my life worked with so intelligent people as I did in those organizations. So they are perfectly aware of it. They know it perfectly. The problem is that, first of all, you know that men is not a rational animal; is a symbolic animal. So we work by symbols, and not by another thing that it is a way for the white kids to say that at least we are helping them. We have the burden, the white man's burden. We killed them and we did lots of terrible things in Africa, which is not true. We did terrible things and we did good things. And if we put both on a balance, we did more good than bad. But that is another discussion. But for the white man's burden, you say, okay, at least I'm giving money. Everybody knows that. It is like if you have a homeless guy, a drug addict in your door, and you give him money every day, and you know that he's going to spend the money in drugs, but it's his right. For you, it gives you a good conscience. It makes you feel good about yourself, and that's. But you are not helping him. I mean,
yes.
Or you are helping him on a very retorted way because okay, you buy drugs, and that is what you want to do. You just buy drugs.
And you feel good about yourself,
and you
and
feel
that's all
good
that
about
matters.
yourself. Yes, and that because you give money.
I have a good example of that. So my mom, when she is walking around in the street and there is a beggar, she never gives them money. She says, if you are hungry, no problem. Baker is there. I go there with you and I buy you whatever you choose. You can even pick the most expensive sandwich. I will buy for you, but I don't give you cash. And the vast majority of them just run away because they're not hungry. They want money for drugs.
They want money for drugs. I am a liberal guy, so I think that if they want to buy drugs with the money, it's their right. They can buy drugs. I don't give money very often to, but sometimes I give something. And if he wants to buy drugs, it's his problem. I'm not there to correct him. I don't. But with the money from development aid, this is what is happening. We are giving money to. First of all, we are giving money to the governments and to the elites of these countries, which, Vitor, we come from a country where this happened with European money. What was the use of European money in Portugal? It went to our elites, did not go to our poor. We are as poor today as we were.
Yeah, I'm the same poor.
Yeah. we are as poor today as we were 30 years ago when the money started arriving. It's exactly the same thing. So, I mean, we talk about African countries, but Portugal is the same. Spain is not very different. So, giving money.
And as you said, I think you said that in an interview or in a book. I can't remember. That Portugal, it's sometimes it's more like a part of Africa and not as much a part of Europe.
Yes, it's one of my opinions. Portugal is it's a much more African country. If you see the relationship, the social relationships, you have a newspaper now called Página 1 that is unveiling a lot of things that happen, and you would not be surprised to read that on an African country. The way they give money and the way they dispose of public money, it's if you read Página 1 could be an African newspaper. It is not an African newspaper because they won't write those things. They won't be allowed to write those things. They would be killed. But the stories that Página 1 tells and unveils, it's stories of an African country. It's not stories. Can you imagine that in Germany, for instance? You cannot. No. Can you imagine that in Norway? No, you can't. You cannot. So the problem with the human development aid in Africa is the reason, and there is another reason that I'm against, and it is for me, it's one of the main reasons, is that humanitarian agencies and even NGOs. I'm not talking about the big ones. Talking about the NGOs, they are being used as an instrument, as a tool for foreign policy. So France uses MSF as a foreign policy tool. It's and I don't like this way of doing policy. And there is another reason that I think, and this one is a very, very strong one as well, is that this was told to me by a minister. I don't remember what country it was. And he was not a minister. He was the level below a minister. He was a Secretary of State, whatever, Secretary of State in Portuguese terms. And he told me, why am I going to spend money in public health? If I have a big problem with public health, the day after I have MSF here. So you know what MSF is, Médecins Sans Frontières. So why am I going to spend money with public health? I have MSF or Médecins du Monde or whatever here, or Oxfam. I'm not going to spend money that I don't have. In fact, so the disadvantages of development aid are much bigger, much larger than the advantages. The problem is that we are not rational. We are a symbolic and mythological species, and we have to make do with that.
Yeah, you're totally right. I think people get amused by the idea that someone is being supported or there is an initiative to help. And if this is happening, it has to be good by default. And people don't mind what is it about. They just look at the concept, so it has to be good because it's there for a positive outcome. Now, we know that behind the curtains, behind the scenes, there's a lot less. So there are agents, and they are there. Those NGOs, they are there for a reason. I think they are more and more part of the central power. So, and what I find very funny is that sometimes they try to sell the idea that they are part of the rebellion, and they are not. They are more and more establishment. There's nothing more establishment than an NGO, because they are very much connected to governments, to institutions, to universities, to the big media. So I don't know how people fall to these traps. It has to be emotions.
Yes, the emotions, yes, but there are much more than that. And the problem is that also NGOs are more and more a way of the Western societies to absorb young joblessness. If you are unemployed, you are a young unemployed man, a young man who has no job, in comas again. So it is kind of an employment agency as well. The humanitarian aid is becoming more and more an employment office. So and they send them there. They don't know. They can't do anything. They know nothing about anything, but they can be sent to Africa because it's better to have someone working on an NGO than receiving unemployment benefits in Europe. And there are more and more cases like that. I mean, it's I don't know if I can say this word, but it's bullshit.
It is what it is, and needs to be said. So, for yourself, what next? Like, you think you're going to be sailing for the rest of your life? How do you foresee, like, the next 10 years? Or...
No, I think I'm not. I would like to put a land on shore. I would like connected to sailing. It's the only thing that I can trade for money. My writing doesn't pay me the coffee, not even a coffee. So I cannot expect living out of my writing, but I can expect living out of my knowledge and my experience in the maritime industry. And that is what I would like to do. I do not see myself without sailing, as the story in Burundi illustrates very well. I bought a sailing boat. I sailed in Lake Tanganyika. So, I mean, I cannot live without a sailing boat. But I would like to spend more time ashore. I'd like to have a house, not for me, but for my books. My books are crying for a place. They are crying for shelves, and I need a place for my books. And I hope that in the next years I will be able to find a way of living ashore, sailing for myself or for clients from times to times, but not making all my life on a boat like presently. I have been living in boats so often that sometimes I go into a bed and I get a strange feeling if I am on a bed that doesn't move. I feel it. What's happening? So I hope.
If you try to calculate your whole life, how much of that you think was spent in the sea, percentage-wise, at this point? 70%.
It was about it. Now it was a little bit more than half. Yes, a little bit more than 50%. If you talk living on boats, but if you talk being connected to boats, being in relationship with boats, it was about 80%, or almost 90%. Because even when I was working ashore, I was working for boat companies or for something connected to boating and to the sea and everything.
So
I even worked on. I almost. Sorry, I can't read you. I can't hear you.
Go ahead. You were about to say something.
No. I was telling that I was even once I worked in Geneva. I worked in a company and we were building boats in Russia. I was in Switzerland and I was building boats in Russia. So you see that I've most 90% of my life has been connected to boats. Yes.
Yeah. There's always a water element.
There's always water somewhere.
Although I have to tell to the people out there, which I don't know how much of that is a secret, but I don't think it's a big deal. You are not really much into drinking water yourself. You have a funny relationship with water.
Yes, I don't know if it is funny. I just don't drink water. It's very, very seldom that I drink water. I don't like water. I don't know why. When I am very, very thirsty, my idea, what comes to my mind is beer, and so I associate being thirsty with beer. Sometimes, strangely enough, when I am sailing at sea, I don't drink a drop of alcohol. I only drink water and coffee. But as soon as I am ashore, I don't drink water. It's a black and white situation. Yes, my relationship. Well, now I've been drinking a little bit more, but drinking water a little bit more. But I keep very far away from the 1.5 liter per day that they say you should drink.
Yeah, it's 2.5 is that much, but yeah, we don't know exactly.
Bullshit. It's bullshit. I just drink beer, and there is lots of water on beer, so you can.
Yeah.
You
so
can drink.
where would you be based, or probably not your books? Would that be Portugal? Would that be Palma de Mallorca, Switzerland?
It's Portugal. We're more and more Portugal. I have to recognize that I have an irrational relationship to Portugal, and although everything I deeply dislike in Portugal, there is. First of all, there is the language, the fact of speaking. I spent all my life speaking a foreign language, in loving people in foreign languages, making love in foreign languages, and I miss my language. And there are other things that I wrote something about that recently, because I really do not understand where does this need to go back to Portugal, but I don't see myself. I mean, I see myself going regularly to Mallorca, for instance, to Palma, because I love Palma beyond any kind of reason. I see myself traveling regularly to Geneva, because I have my family in Geneva, and I love that city as well. But leaving the place for my books, definitely it's Portugal. I need to find a house. I need to find a house in Portugal.
No, I totally get it, like that thing of having the books next to you, because I'm about to buy a house myself. I don't know if I told this to you or to the people out there. So we are nearly there. Contract is signed, that. So we are purchasing a place or a property in a seaside town or coastal town called Bray, which is about 30 minutes. Bray, Bray.
Okay. Yes.
It's about 30 minutes away from Dublin. It's the biggest front in the Dublin Bay, and my main concern is because I want to bring my books from Portugal here, and I want to be sure that they can fit. So I'm having some debates with my girlfriend, because she wants an L couch and some fancy shelf. And for me, it's all about the books. So we need to make sure that both of us are happy, including the cat.
Yes, you have a cat. I remember now. Yes.
So I will just finalize this with an invite. So I know you were in Dublin a year ago for my book launch, by the way.
Yes.
Which was in April. So we have a home not far from the sea, only like 10-15 minutes walking away.
Perfect.
So perfect. You can arrive by sea, you can arrive by airplane. Just you are more than welcome to come over. Yeah, so we can have these chats face to face. If not, we can always set up a video call. Thank God we don't depend on letters anymore. So yeah.
Thank you, Victor. I will gladly accept. As you know, I love Ireland, so yes, I will gladly accept your invitation. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Any last message you want to say to the audience, or as a
to the audience, yes, I would say buy Victor's books because they are very good. No, he's very good. So buy Victor's books by all means, and thank you very much for your time, for the time spending listening to my stories.
One of your books is being translated, by the way, to French, no?
One of my books is being translated to French. It's a never-ending story because it's like the tides. When the tide is filling up, the book advances. When the tide is going down, the book stops. But yes, it's being translated into French. But for the time being, it's only in English, only in Portuguese. So for the time being, buy your book because your book is bilingual. So buy Victor's books. And thank you very much for the time and for the attention. Yeah, I hope so. I'd like to. I would like.
I think there'll be people interested in your stuff. So, yeah, we'll do everything to make it happen. So, thanks for the chat. It was great chatting with you. To you, I think we could be here forever as usual. But for the rest of the people out there, let's close it for now. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much,
care.
Peter. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Have a good one.
Well, I hope to see you in Bry. Cheers.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.